Hi, my name is Jane Picarelli, and we're going to be talking about the less famous brain cell today, neuroglia. Meet the neuron, the most famous brain cell. Most students who have taken so much as an introductory psychology class are familiar with the neuron. It's famous for receiving and transmitting electrical impulses known as action potentials, so that communication between your brain and the rest of your body can take place. But are there other cells in the brain? And if so, what do they do? So as it turns out, there's actually many different types of cells throughout the brain and the spinal cord. These cells are collectively called neuroglia. The central nervous system, although comprised of neurons as well, contains many types of glial cells, collectively known as neuroglia. Although neuroglia neurons do share some things in common, such as they communicate, and both are in a large number found in the central nervous system, there are many differences between them. Neurons can generate action potentials, whereas neuroglia cannot. Neuroglia can modify a synapse action instead, though. Neuroglia act as support for neurons, and they help regulate extracellular area immediately surrounding neurons. They communicate by chemical means instead of by electrical impulses, and they actually make up the majority of the cells in the central nervous system, whereas neurons only make up about a tenth of the cells. Although the peripheral nervous system also has two types of glial cells found within it, today we're going to be discussing the four types of glial cells found in the central nervous system. Those include oligodendrocytes, microglia, ependymal cells, and astrocytes. So we're going to begin by talking about astrocytes. They're actually the most common glial cell. They're looked at as the mortar that fixes neurons into their appropriate positions. They coax capillaries to alter in a way that allows for the formation of the blood-brain barrier, which is a way that prevents most pathogens and other inappropriate substances from reaching the brain. They function to aid in the transporting of vital nutrients to the blood from the neurons. They create scarring to allow for the repair of injuries to the brain. They rid the brain of excess neurotransmitters, allowing for the next set of activities to initiate. They are in chemical communication with neurons by releasing of gliotransmitters. This is like a neurotransmitter, but instead is released from a glial cell. They are responsible in part for integrating a neuron's activity at the synapse. So if you take a look right here, this is a typical neuron cell, the cell body of the neuron. Attached to it, you can see this is the astrocyte. Now, this astrocyte is attached to the neuron in a way that fixes it into the position that it's at. Next up is oligodendrocytes. In the central nervous system, they form the myelin sheath around the neuron's axon. The myelin sheath, recall, is that protective layer that helps insulate the electrical impulses, also known as the action potentials, that travel through the interneurons. This long worm-like object is actually the axon of a neuron. Over here is the oligodendrocyte, and as you can see, it's extending its appendage and wrapping around the axon to form myelin. Ependymal cells, which line the ventricles in the brain, use cilia, which are hair-like projections, to help circulate the cerebral spinal fluid and maintain its homeostasis. They also contain the precursors needed for generation of new neurons. Their cell division, unlike many other cells, is not halted. The problem with this is gliomas, or tumors, can form because of their unregulated cell division. Lastly, we're going to discuss microglia. These are the neurosoldiers of the central nervous system. They're actually formed from the same bone marrow tissue as our monocytes. Microglia are responsible for surveillance of the nervous system. They look for pathogens or signs of injury that is in need of repair. Once they find their victim, they can actually release chemicals to destroy them. They're activated by infection or injury and actually change in shape in response to a trigger. They also are responsible for the pruning of synapses, but they also have a nurturing feature about them. They actually secrete nerve growth factor, which helps not only other glial cells, but other neurons as well.